WifOR has developed a tool for sustainability analyses. It is called WISIT, the WifOR Institute Sustainability Impact Tool. With WISIT, companies can independently calculate effects in their supply chain. All that is required is the company's purchasing data, also known as spend. The company prepares its data so that their sustainability managers only have to upload it to WISIT for it to be processed. Based on this purchasing data, a company can calculate the economic, social, and environmental effects along its supply chain. This results in the holistic representation of the company's footprint. The calculated footprint can then be broken down in various ways. One option is the so-called disaggregation, the breakdown according to different individual dimensions. For this, the individual dimensions must be identified in the spend. Let's therefore take a look at the example that we have already uploaded into WISIT. We can see that the spend file has been disaggregated, and we have added additional dimensions. First, we have the required information such as the year in which the purchase was made, the manufacturing country, the sector, and the purchasing value in US dollars. If information on the manufacturing country is not available, you can use vendor country as a useful proxy. In the present spend file, we have added the actual vendor, the function, as well as information on the product. This means that if there's an additional column in the purchasing data in the spend file, for example, the product, this can be traced and understood which product is responsible for which expenditure, and the results for the individual product can then be output by the tool. We can now start a new project by selecting the respective type of analysis and corresponding input-output table and uploading the prepared spend file. We click on Create Project in order to configure the analysis in more detail. On the left-hand side, we see the summary of the data provided by the required columns in the spend report. On the right-hand side, you can see the optional dimensions provided. If we want to disaggregate the data further, we can drag and drop the red bubbles into the box below. We then have the option to filter these dimensions by clicking on the Filter button. For example, we can filter for the top 5 vendors by volume. We call these scenarios. Next, we decide which parts of the supply chain are of interest to our analysis. We can choose to analyze the indirect, induced, and/or spillover effects, as well as we can decide how far along the supply chain we want to analyze our company's impact. For now, we focus on indirect effects along Tier 1, 2, and total as well as the rest. In the next step, we select the economic, environmental, and social dimensions of our company we are interested in, and select the corresponding monetized units to understand and compare their respective impact. Physical units would be tons of CO2, for example, and monetary units can then be the societal impact measured in US dollars of CO2 emitted for the output. We have chosen GDP contribution and jobs created as well as greenhouse gas emissions, their projections as well as waste. We have also selected the WifOR own monetization coefficients. These are the calculated conversion values that can be used to account for the social significance of physical units. Value Balancing Alliance members can select the VBA monetization coefficients. Finally, by scrolling down, we can decide if we want to disaggregate our data further, filtering for only one of the 2 years represented in our spent report, as well as if we want to disaggregate the data by country and by sector. We have chosen by country, and we could filter further, and for example, only look into countries belonging to the OECD, for example, or specific countries of interest. The same applies to sectors. Once we have made our selection, we can start the calculation by selecting the Start Calculation button. We will then see the results displayed in the next step, and we will be able to download the results in an Excel file, as well as see different graphical options to choose from that help us understand the results. The results have now been calculated, and we can see here an overview of the results, and we can choose if we want to look into certain aspects in more detail. For now, we can see the total numbers on the OECD countries that we selected earlier. On the left-hand side, we have the output referring to the physical units, and on the right-hand side, the monetized impact. Let's take a look at the bar chart, which is one option for data presentation. We can choose the variable we are interested in, such as greenhouse gas emissions, and then we drag and drop the aspects that we are interested in into the containers on the right side. Let's take a look at product code and tier. We update the results and we can see product A and B, and we may identify a new hotspot for the company indicating where in the supply chain most greenhouse gas emissions take place. If we are interested in the total values of all products in this case, we can tick the box Show Totals on X-axis. We update the results and we get an additional column with the total values. The sunburst would work in a similar way. We choose the variable that we want to look at in more detail. Let's take a look at jobs created in this case. And then again, we drag and drop the elements of interest into the right-hand side. We choose the tier, the vendor, and the product, and we can see the amount of jobs created along which tier, for which vendor, and which product. Do you want to feel empowered to understand and control your supply chain? Get in touch and start making a difference. If you measure it, you can shape it.